towards you, small heroes.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another replay recall, and today we're going to be reviewing a Silver Moira VOD on King's Row. So this was sent to me by a friend of mine who is trying to improve on Moira, and I'm a big fan of Moira. I know a lot of people dislike her immensely as a character, but I think you can get a lot of value out of her, and I actually enjoy her kit, even though it is a little limited compared to like an Ana or Lucia or whatever. I think her kit's kind of interesting to use and to make the max value out of it that you can. So King's Row, also traditionally super stomp heavy game, stomp heavy map, so it's a lot of like momentum building. Either you get this kind of like unstoppable juggernaut of momentum going and you take it all the way home, or you stumble at the first hurdle or second hurdle and just can't get it back. So it's super momentum based, similar to a lot of the escort maps in general and the hybrid maps. So okay, so King's Row at the start, right here and here and here are our exits, our spawn exits, and they're going to lead. Most people are going to take this one here. I would like to point out the other two are useful for multiple reasons. I usually go out the bottom one here because, so this is the infamous King's Row choke, right here. After you get in front of the bus like partially obscures this view, which is why you just don't get melted the second the door opens a lot of the time. But this is already behind cover. So if you exit out of this, you're already protected by this sightline, and you can just go under here and make it all the way up to the gate pretty much uncontested from this angle. And you're going to take a lot of damage coming at this door, and you're going to take some damage depending on where you go. You kind of have to go like in some direction, so unless you go up the top and like flank or whatever. But if you're going around here, you're going to take damage. Anything in front of this area, damage. So that's why I like going out here, going around here. Usually I'm Ryan on these levels, I'll throw like a fire strike through like an angle, or I'll like jump and swing around the corner or whatever, just like feel things out at the choke. But so that's just something to point out there. So yeah, and breaking this first point is always hard. The choke is the hardest thing because basically it's this weird dance between the tanks and supports. So it's kind of like the DPS are just going to go off and do whatever DPS do. A flanking DPS can do a lot of work here, like a Reaper or Tracer, but the tanks and the supports are what make or break this initial fight that you have at the choke here. Your tanks need support, a lot of support, to get through the choke and get to a defensible position, but at the same time supports need to cover to get there with them. So what'll often happen is if you're out of sync with your supports, if they got picked up early or something and you just don't have enough sustain, you got nowhere to go. Usually, so this is the choke right here, okay, this is the choke. Normally you got a couple different options of what you can do. Realistically, you can usually push them back to point and then circle around here and go from that angle. Or you can cut a quick left and go through hotel and go for that angle. I mean, you can go the whole way around, but it's not advised for a whole team. I would think maybe a flank, like a soldier or McCree or something, should go that way. But ultimately, for your team, you want to try and get like the majority of you close to point as soon as you can. And where do the defenders hold? Well, there's a couple places. Popular on Owl for a while was like up here, up in this corner. You'd have Arissa and everybody up here. I didn't like that much, honestly. I never really a big fan of that one. On point itself, popular. At the choke, little bit between the choke and point. You may have a couple spread over here too, but we're kind of in these positions roughly, right? So if they're right at the choke, then that's where you need that support to cut them down and get them out of the way. They're already kind of overextending, or they will overextend here. You can easily get like a May to wall them off or whatever. There's a couple different ways they're going to die if they hang out in here for too long. So the likelihood is they're going to back up to point, right? This is a very popular position to play in the mid fight around here. So you'll be kind of like, your team is right here, enemy team is right here, and you're clashing in the middle. And it's basically the first person to burn a shield or whatever that succeeds. I would almost always recommend going around here. I think it gives you the most amount of cover. You have a health pack that you can access from this side, and there's also like kind of the same as on Blizzard World. You can play the angles on it. You can kind of go around this side, around that side, around this side, around that side, peek, poke, So that's why I like that as my primary way to approach. I'm not sure what you do here. I honestly can't remember, even though I was a part of it. So we'll see. You are Moira, so things I'm going to be looking for in this VOD, good orb usage, knowing when to use which orb and why, making sure that your resources never drop too far down, your healing resources, and using Fade primarily as a defensive ability. I think those are what I'm looking for to begin with. So without further ado, let's go. Okay, so you're going at this exit, which is fine. Worth pointing out, this is a replay, by the way. So in this instance, the blue team are the bad guys and the red team are the good guys, or at least from our perspective. So with that in mind, this, what was it, a sim? What was that? Yeah, the sim. No, that's a Moira. That's what, yeah, that's so she must have faded when you threw that. God, that's kind of funny. She literally fades as you throw that, like just vanishes, like gone. So yeah, she was overextending. I'm okay with the damage orb here as well. Although I don't know if that was a damage orb. It's hard to tell with this reverse, isn't it? Okay, so let's take a quick look at this. Yeah, I really hate that the enemy is blue. It's really confusing. So there's a turret there. And when did we start to notice that he was getting zapped by it? It gets here is when it gets him. And you're throwing out some healing. Let's watch this again. You're trying to keep him up. Trying to keep her up. She dies to the turret. And then we break the turret. Yeah, that was, honestly, I would have maybe just focused on the turret right away. Because Soldier, I think, had a healing thing. If not, then at very least, he can do that. No, he didn't have it up. That's weird. Yeah, I maybe would have blasted Soldier here and then just gone in, like hugged the wall. So you can see it, right? You can see the beam. So there's visual information here that tells us there's a thing there. You need to be kind of here, like move forward along, hug the bus, make sure they can't get you from wherever they are, and then so just spray him one time. And remember, it does that heal over time thing, the 65 health points over 4 seconds after you blast it, and every second that you have it held down is 65 as well. So you can just blast him real quick here, move to this point here, and then just rip the turret down as fast as you can. You're one of the best people to deal with turrets, actually, because you have the kind of the auto lock thing with her aim, so you don't have to be too like precise with it, just the general area, and you'll still take it out. But because we don't do that, Mercy dies, which is not our fault, but at the same time, just a small adjustment. Just spray him, trust that your healing is going to take over after you let go, and then take that thing down. You maybe still wouldn't have, helped her survive anyway. This Moira's overextending like crazy. What killed you? A Soldier. Yeah, that's just a positioning flaw. So let's look at this again. So again, we talked about hugging the bus, which you are doing here, but then you get then you get bloodthirsty, which is, trust me, I know it. With Moira, it's so easy. You see her, you're like breaking her down, you're breaking her down, you're thinking, oh yes, and then you kind of ignore this situation here, because you're so hell-bent on bringing down the remainder of that HP. This was a time when either backing up and going around the other side, or just knowing when to like stop moving would have helped you. Instead, I think you get taken out by a guy called Boom. You got AIDS. So so we'll see. But yeah, so Soldier has like perfect sight lines on you from here. Sigma's right here. There's actually another turret here, which, by the way, if there's been one turret, it's probably more, is also kind of a good rule of thumb. If you've only killed one, then there's two more that you got to find, and they're probably going to be close by. Just that's basic game sense stuff in terms of, you know, if you see one, then just kind of keep thinking about it. The other thing you could have potentially done here, as far as like minimizing sight lines, or at least on your approach, is to have gone towards this side. You could have faded like around this kind of area. There's a health pack around here somewhere, I think. Sort of, and then that way you're still hugging this wall here. So Soldier and whatnot don't have line of sight on you because you're outside of the line of sight. But you could have still kept going on the Moira from behind her and probably pulled it off. Probably killed her. So this is just a very simple positioning thing. As you move forward, just you're blinded by your own like desire to kill the Moira, and then you just. I mean, look at this screen. You literally walked into that. That's a lot of things. That's a lot of things that want to kill you. I'm not surprised that it went down so quick. But yeah, it's a small thing. It really is. But like having that like rage take over, and you can see she's still low health, but it's whatever. You got to know when to like quit, you know. And she's just going to get healed up over there anyway. There's an Ana in the back. Which is valuable information, by the way. And sometimes it's good to watch the death screen if you don't have the kills, how you got killed thing on, and kind of see what's going on. So that sucks. Okay, you guys can group here though. You're actually timing this pretty well. They're waiting for you. Good heals. You're pre-healing. I like this. I like the holding down. Let me point that one out as well. You're doing good here. I'll explain why. There's no reason not to have that hand held down when you're moving around. Like, you don't really lose much in the way of speed or anything. Like, you threw out your healing orb, your team is fine. You can see there's some, you know, some of these stupid-ass turrets that are bothering people, and you're just arm held out, trying to keep Ryan alive, swapping it out. I like it. You should, not just for turrets, but do that for the enemy too. Just have it held down, because at very least, you'll be topping up your resources. So for those of you that don't know, really quick here, this is Moira's heal bar. Currently we are there for heals. The white amount is what she has left in the tank for heals. Your bar here gets refilled over time, but also when you do damage, which is why people freak out a lot about DPS Moiras, because if they can watch, like, I don't know, like either play the game or like a kill feed or whatever, and it can look like all Moira is doing is running around zapping everybody, when realistically she may just be trying to refill her resources to help her team. And definitely there are people that just DPS as Moira and don't heal nearly enough, but your resources are super important. You really want to never let them get to zero if you can help it. You want to kind of keep it like bare minimal around here for those small instances and those small times when something unexpected happens. So your heal over time is nice because you can just like heal someone and then not worry about it for a second. But there are instances where there's going to be a lot of focused fire, especially on someone like your Reinhardt. So in those instances, if you at least make sure you have a tiny amount of your heals left, then you can tank him through it. You get 65 health points per second with this. So if you can hold it down for like 3-4 seconds with your resources, then that's a lot of keeping somebody up, which is why it's so important to balance it. So something to bear in mind going into this. You know that your Reinhardt's going into a heavy situation. There's going to be a ton of burst damage. What can you do to minimize that for him from here? This is good. It's tough to keep him up. Reinhardt, too much damage. And that was mostly his fault, because looking at, if I can spin it back here a little bit further, looking at where he was when he died, it was just way too much going on. You tried. There it is. Like, it looks like it just burned, insta burned. him down. So yeah, there's the Ana in the back as well. Worth noticing that as well, isn't it? Taking a second to appreciate that. Not just because Ana took out a Reinhardt, but because like that just told you that they have an Ana that is actively and effectively shooting your team. A lot of Anas will like hone in on doing like just heals or whatever, but in this instance, this Ana is actively going after you and your tanks. So it's good to know that. So then you know that you can maybe try and remove her. We saw where she was perched in the death screen before. So something that Moira can do really well actually is unsettle people on high ground or like in little cubby holes by throwing an orb that way, because they don't want to hang around and get the life juice plugged out of them. So sometimes it's worth doing that, just throwing an orb in the general direction of like someone in a high corner or whatever. Unfortunate. Nice to keep your tank up. Okay. You guys are doing pretty good. This is a common place for Moira to be in, and I understand a lot of people struggle with knowing what to do in these types of scenarios. So if we just take like a second to appreciate the chaos that is Overwatch here for a second, let's break this down for a second. So you're successfully here on the other side of the hotel. Let's, you know what, let's really break this son of a gun down. Give me a second here. You are here. The majority of your team is either this side or this side on point, and some enemies remain in this area, right? So what do? Do you try and kill the enemies, or do you keep your team alive? It's tough. And those are the decisions that you have to make as Moira on an almost daily basis, so or a second by second basis. So one of the things that I like to do is you can either compromise or go all in on heals, right? So all in on heals is throw a healing orb and then spray your healing and just hope that your team is mechanically gifted enough to take out the remaining people. Or if your team is looking pretty healthy, then just go straight for the kill potentially. The best way to do it is to juggle the two. So what you want to be doing is kind of like pulling a little bit on an enemy and then spraying some heals, and then pulling a little bit and spraying some heals. And then if it looks like the enemy's low and your team's mostly high, throw a damage orb. If it looks like the enemy's still there and your team's mostly low, throw a healing orb. And then do the same thing, rinse, repeat. That's your mid-fight behavior as Moira, is a lot of like damage and heals and damage and heals and damage and heals, like going back and forth to try and keep yourself, kind of like trying to, when you're a Pharah and you're trying to fly as a Pharah, you know how you like kind of, you do that Flappy Bird thing where you press down on the button and you let go and you press down and you let go and you just kind of like try and use that bobbing momentum. That is kind of similar to how you have to play Moira in a team fight situation. You have a ton of healing though. Your resources are topped up, so maybe better to just go for some kills. But everyone's critical now, right? You take a couple seconds to go on kill mode, and then watch how quickly everyone gets stomped down to critical. So you've been doing your thing here, and then just more and more and more. So yeah, I would think here we need to fully go all in on heals. Good. Great. Don't ult. Good. Okay, great. Cleaned up good. You're moving around, which is good. Y is moving around good on the first point of King's Row. This is friendly. Actually, no, this is not friendly because they're blue, right? But this is the reason why. Make yourself harder to hit. Never stay too still. Stay out of light. Yeah, I like that you kited back there around LOS too. So your Ana landed a fat purple on you guys. She's up in that window, as you can kind of see. I think you were focusing on Monkey a little bit here, which is understandable. You got a giant monkey in your face. But you did the right thing, though. So you kind of kited around the other side of the hotel, which is fine. Again, you got to use cover where you can get it. So a lot of what King's Row, the beginning part of it, is kind of about is your momentum and your re-engagement. So if the enemy pushes through here and you're defending, once they reach and take a portion of the point here, you need to be backing out. You need to be backing out towards the tunnel and here, and then build up your crew here and go back in to recontest as a team. So many people will just stagger themselves out, or they'll try and stay on point for too long. Like, you by yourself on point, as noble as that might feel, is not helping anybody, because you're just going to stagger yourself out. Better to die with everyone else and try and make it back as a team than to stay by yourself on point. So if you have a high survivability, someone like Moira, sometimes you got to know when to either like get the fuck out of Dodge, or, you know, or die. But that's how teams are, you know, how the ebb and flow of first point of King's Row goes for team fights, is that you got those guys coming in here, and then these guys are either going to stand and die, or they're going to retreat, regroup, and re-engage. And then if they can successfully retake the point, oftentimes that's the end of the story. Yeah, so good job. The enemy team coalescing here is ridiculous. So that was, I mean, that was preventable, right? I mean, you didn't, I'm proud of you for not using coalescence. I will say, as a general rule of thumb, coalescence, you just use it off cooldown for the most part. But you're not in a team fight here that you have to really be worried about, because if you die, you're going to spawn like 2 seconds away. So for them, this is a massive waste of ults. And it should make sense to anybody watching. But so if you, let's move a little further down here. Okay, so there, you've already capped the point, and the payload's here. Your spawn is like back here, and they'll just go in tits here. I understand wanting to hold here, maybe on this side, because then you can keep people trapped in the choke. But like everyone using ults and everything here when you're spawning less than, you know, a second away is kind of silly and a waste, and very easy to take advantage of as well, because realistically, you want the enemy team to push the payload a little bit. You want to take over the payload. That's how you can prevent people from getting back to it. So you almost want them to like push at least to the choke first before you attack. Or maybe if they're like, if they push it all the way through here, you jump them when they're here, right? Boo, 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 boo. Because it's so much easier to defend a payload here than it is to defend one here when they're spawning right here. So yeah, that's weird. They shouldn't be doing that. But I mean, they are, so take advantage of it. But yeah, this is a little bit preventable, mostly because you have fade. So like you're getting beamed down pretty hard, and I don't know if this is like there's just a visual clutter situation or what, but she's beaming you specifically, and Mercy. You're both getting beamed super hard, and you still have fade. So you should have faded into the hotel or around the right side of the back of the statue, and you could have avoided this death. Always stop and ask yourself, why did I die? Was that avoidable? Was there something I could have done? And if you look at your cooldowns and see there's one you didn't use, then you didn't try everything. You're getting res though, so that's nice. Okay, good orbs. Get closer to your team. I'm not sure why you're back here. Moira needs to be in the thick of it a little bit. She, like I said, her survivability is crazy. So the further you are away from your team, the more likely you are to get picked off by some random fucking Junkrat or McCree or whatever. So you want to be like really in the middle. And also, Anna ran away from there, but like, oh, there's monkeys up there, is it? So whenever you see a situation like this, sometimes if you just want to test and make sure that there's no problems in here, just throw an orb up there. Your purple orbs, your damage orbs, are scouting devices as well as damage dealing devices. So if you throw a purple orb into a small room or through a window or whatever, and you start hearing that tick, 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 tick noise, then you know there's somebody there, right? You can actually use it to detect flankers before they reach you on many maps. So in this instance, if you had an inkling, like you looked up here and I think you were comfortable with it because you couldn't actually see him, and that's fine. But you know, there wasn't Anna up here a second ago and stuff, so I would still assume that she was maybe around someplace, and I wouldn't want an Anna to have high ground over me. So I would probably throw a damage orb up here just to see if anything ticked or not. And if you did do that, it would have ticked, and you would have known there was an enemy waiting to dive on you. So, bit of free information. You had the orb, it just came off cooldown right now. I assume, yeah, I was gonna say, I assume you get jumped on by the Winston shortly after. Yeah. Okay, Fade. I think the only thing I have with that is I think you separated yourself from your team. So the thought process was escape, I get that, so you're getting zapped here. But if you're in a situation like this, right, and I know it's like really visually cluttered here, but if you're in a situation like this where 5 of your teammates are here, don't fade backwards into the Winston, because he can separate you out then and just chew you off. I don't think he does. I think you survive, but I would fade either into this little room here or into the alleyway back there, just like with your team though. Like you could even fade into the middle of your team. He still has to try and get to you, and eventually someone else is going to shoot him. It's not, it's not your job to take a Winston down as a Moira. So yeah, I would say maybe that fade could have been done towards your team, or at least into cover towards your team. So you're back here, you're completely separated, you're trying to get back to him. It's honestly a waste of time to even tickle a Winston that's just pulled primal. It's just not worth it. It's a waste of your resources. You should be just kind of keeping an eye on your team, throwing orbs, that type of stuff, maybe trying to get a better position. There's no way you're going to deal with it. And using an ult is excessive as well. If he's the only one left, I don't know how, like, where the rest of his team are. And I do like that you took him down and you saved everyone. It was a clutch ult for sure, but maybe considering it was it looks like just a Winston and a Moira, I think 6 on 2 you could have taken him, even if he was primal. So you did great. It turned out really well, and it did turn out to be the correct decision as far as pulling your ult there. But you should at least, and I don't know if you did this, you should at least ask yourself before you do it, is this worth it? Are we already winning or not? Like I said, you clutched out there and actually killed both him and the Moira and kept everyone alive, so great job. But do have that question in your head every time before you pull it. Am I going to gain max value here? Or at least decent value. Doesn't have to be max value. 1 or 2 people dead from a coalescence is clutch. Okay, so now you want to be thinking about where to position yourself for the next team fight, okay? So knowing that we are here, the enemy team can approach us from a couple different angles. The most likely are going to be flankers from here and then head on, right? Because for the most part, once you're in this stage, the street stage of King's Row, everything's kind of falling apart for the defense. And unless they're recontesting as a group, then typically they're going to be kind of trickling towards you down main and not trying to do anything too flashy. So those are your main kind of places to be concerned of for right now. You're a little bit in the open. I would like to see you closer to the wall using natural cover. You could still heal your tanks, you could still turn around and heal your Mercy, but if there's a Widow that's like out of line of sight up here somewhere, or if there's a Widow on the staircase back there, you want to put like the wall and the payload between yourself, like sandwich yourself in between the two so that you're reducing those angles against you. That's what positioning is about. Nice catch on the sim. I guess you must have heard that. I don't have sound, but that was a really good catch. You at this point go all in and kill her. Yeah, I wouldn't have faded. You should have just gone for it. You were doing fine. You can take a sim in a 1v1. Oh, I see the soldiers using visor. That's why you did it. Okay, that's fair. I would have done the same. But again, though, where did you fade to? That's like a weird habit of fading backwards. When not fading backwards, not always the case. Fading to safety is what you need to do. So don't by default fade backwards. Fade to safety. Either fade around here and tuck inside, or around here. There's a mega in here. Fade back to your team so you can keep them up. Because right now, look how far away you are from your the entirety of your team, and look what just died. So they're stuck now without a healer, and it's going to be really tough. Honestly, I might even go for the full flank around there. I don't even think you're going to be able to get to them either way, but I assume you go this way. But your fade, you've just used your fade. You're still in the open. Symmetra still knows where you are. Soldiers gunning down your team. Tough position to be in. So you opt to try and kill them. Not a bad choice. Melee there. It's a small thing, but look at the health. So you were close enough as well. Like, you were within melee range here, I think. When you see that little, like, when you know there's less than one notch on the enemy's health bar, just melee them. You will instantly kill them. One notch is 25, melee does 30 damage. So just get used to, like, finishing up, like, fades and stuff with melee. You do take her down, though, so that's good. You're not spraying anybody there. I don't think. Not even the Hammond. Yeah. So remember, if they're traveling, you want to have it in front of them a little bit. But here, you're not really spraying anybody. And you only have 15 meters on your spray, too, so you'd want to get a little closer. So play a little closer to the team here. I do like that you're keeping him alive, though. Good stuff. Good, good, good. And then these two flank. Man, they're aggressive. So you're kind of... So let's pay attention. Let's take a second. So right now, there's good and bad news. The good news is, congratulations, you've discovered where both of their healers are hiding. The bad news is you're on the front line DPSing these two, and we don't know where the rest of your team is necessarily. You have no cooldowns available currently, and they can take you. So I don't know if you pull this off or not. I hope you do. But right now you're frontlining, which is something you never want to be doing as Moira. If you ever notice that you're the person in front of your team, move back. That's the time when fading backwards is definitely allowed. So they use ult. Ryan shatters. You guys took a little bit too long to switch to healing there. You can see the Reinhardt's critical coming in. Like, and you're still... So right about here, I think you're trying to get the Ana here, but it kind of ends up straying close to the thing. It takes a little bit too long to get on heals, but you do get there. It's tough. Throw a healing orb off cooldown. Okay, you did. Good. Good, good, good. Heals, heals, heals. Still damaging. Still damaging. That was good. Yeah, so a little bit more healing, a little bit less damaging in that last one. I get the urge, believe me, I do, but it's like being cognizant of it. Just kind of, am I getting a little too slap happy? So here I'd like to see you engage with ult. This is a really good time to use your specific ult because of a couple reasons. Number one, the entirety of your team is in front of you. So you're already going to get close to max value just pulling it behind your team. And secondly, the enemy is in front of you as well. So this is as good as it gets for coalescences. If your team is in front of you and the enemy team is in front of you, pop coalescence. You are going to immediately do two things. You're going to let your tanks know it's go time by popping coalescence. They're going to be a lot more aggressive because they assume that you can keep them up. But also you are going to engage and cause chaos in which someone else can get value from an ult as well. So whenever there's a coalescence in your face, it's very difficult to concentrate. So if you're doing that and just like, you know, blasting everybody with your coalescence, then either your soldier or your Junkrat can maybe get away with a really sick ult while the enemy is distracted. So good to combine it. But in this instance, you're in sort of perfect situation for coalescence. So it'll be interesting to see if you take the initiative or not. So, yeah, it was a good tire. Now things are getting a little out of whack. Who's down there from the enemy team? Is that Ana? Who is that? Oh, I don't know. That's Moira. There, Moira is frontlining. Okay, good. That's good coalescence. A little bit later than I would have liked it, because I think you would have been round in the corner by now if you would have done the first one. But it works out. You... two things here. Your team needs you here. You're in a very critical part of the push, so you can't abandon them. But also, you, in less than like 3 seconds, you're going to have an orb available. The only thing you really need to do in this situation with the soldier being here is to just like scare him away. You don't have to kill him. It's not your job to kill everything. Sometimes you can just scare him away. So throwing an orb in here at like an angle where it was going to bounce around nasty for a while was your best bet. Because you know, A, you can without taking damage, and B, you're very likely to scare him away because he doesn't want to be trapped in a small room with an orb. And you fade into him right here, an aggressive fade. Boom. Now you're fucked. Because what if he starts winning the fight? You have no disengagement, no escape. I mean, honestly, what you could have done if you, the one way that this, and I don't know what you do, but the one way this maybe would have worked out is if you were kind of in the position you are now, you faded to this without him seeing you do it. So you could throw a really like specific diagonal orb in here that bounces up and down off the ceiling like a nasty one that just drains him all the way down, potentially, and maybe just like do a little bit of extra poke as well. So, but yeah, if you go in here, then it's suicidal. I mean, thank you, Hammond. Thank you for running in there. You did okay. You did get the... Did you get the health back? No, you were full health already. But yeah, he put his healing station down, which is why it's always hard to 1v1 a soldier. And without the Hammond putting the additional damage in there, I don't know if you would have survived that. But you did, so props on the peeling from Hammond. So again, like, taking stock of the situation... Blue, remember, blue is enemy team. Your team, enemy, enemy. Look where you are in relation to everyone else on your team right now. You're in no man's land. And I know that you went in here to try and take out the soldier, and it did work. You got to take out the soldier, but Bull's already back with the team, or at least on his way back to the team. So that's what you need to be doing. You need to be not exposing yourself to anything on this side, like nothing on this side of the screen. You need to go this way and make your way back to your team. Maybe even wait for fade to come off cooldown so you can safely fade back to your team without exposing yourself to fire. But you are opting... Oh no, this is good. Okay. Again, I do like that you're holding this button down, by the way. I do. That is really a smart move. So you guys definitely need to group here around the payload. Everyone is a little bit weirdly spread out. There's a couple people that need healing. Try and keep your Mercy up. Aside from your main tank, Mercy is... definitely your secondary healer is definitely a priority. This is not helpful for anything really. There's either throw a healing orb there to your Raper and then get out, or yeah, just get out. This is not going to end well. Both you and the soldier should get out. You're staggering here. And then sort of ulting into... Yeah, like your team isn't here, though. You know, no one's here to follow up on this. Your soldier and Mercy just died. And I get what you're trying to do, because you feel like they're all grouped up. I have coalescence. I can wreck them. You won't be able to, because the focus fire is going to be too strong. When you're using coalescence, you are putting a big light bulb on your head that says, hey, enemy team, please kill me. Everyone wants to take you out immediately, whether it's to bash you or hook you or whatever. They're wanting to kill you immediately, which is why it makes so much more sense to do it from behind your team, because that way, A, they have to get through your team first, but B, you can also get extra value by healing your team. As far as like Coalescence's output, the damage is only 70 per second. So if they can get out of your line of sights in like 3 seconds, they're probably going to be fine for the most part. But the heals are 140 per second and 50 to yourself per second. So you get so much more value out of using it to heal people, and then just using like the damage as kind of like a nice bonus. Like if I get damage, great, but otherwise just use it to keep your tanks up in a team fight, or to avoid a wipe or whatever. But using it against the team alone with no follow-up and all the focus fire on you is going to be bad. Yeah. It happens. No worries. There's 2 ways to get back to your cart right now. There's this way, and then there's this way, which has like a tunnel system that leads out towards the bottom of the ramp area. Almost always use this way, because you can just avoid so much shit on the way in that's getting spammed in your general direction, and basically take like a free fight at the second corner. So nice, you do use it. Good. Use angles here. This is one of my favorite things about Moira, legitimately. I'm not really good at like math or anything, but I love the nature of utilizing the environment with Moira. I think it's super interesting. So like throwing your purple orb here will cause it to bounce back this way and give you like free alt charge and maybe kill an enemy or something that's low. So like kind of similar to like when you play Sigma and you use the walls to bounce your orbs off of so that you can fire on things without being seen. Same principle applies to her damage orbs and healing orbs. Like you can throw them in a manner that it'll last longer because you're throwing them against a wall or whatever. But also like you can use the angles to keep yourself safe. That way you don't have to go anywhere near that corner if you don't want to. That's good. That's a good orb. A little bit. It's skied for some reason. Yeah, don't even take it. Don't even take the 1v1 with the Reaper. You are super unlikely to win this. Both of you get healed by attacking each other, and Reaper will win. So know when taking a 1v1 is a good idea and when it is a terrible idea. Not everybody can be killed out of pure mechanics. Some people, the fight is just a mismatch and there's nothing you can do about it other than recognize it and get the fuck out of there when it happens. So right about here, you have Fade, use it, and use it to escape. I mean, you confused him for a second. That may have just been like the environment or whatever got you trapped there, but luckily your Mercy's peeling, so that's good. Nope. Yeah, back up, back up, back up. Like recognizing these situations is super important as well. Like, so, you know, at the best of times right now, you don't have anyone on your team available, right? I mean, Hammond is, I think that's Hammond over there somewhere. But your team is gone. They're either dead or they're away. And at very least, your main tank is gone, which is a sign that you need to back up. So immediately upon kind of recognizing the situation here, like definitely you can still throw an orb in for alt charge, but upon recognizing the situation, fade to your left and get back to spawn. Like actually on spawn. Don't try and save the Junkrat. Yeah. And then Mercy's going to keep you. Nope. So yeah, so if you'd have faded back there and just sort of gone to rejoin your team, the Junkrat still would have died either way. And the Wrecking Ball just does what Wrecking Ball does. That's totally fine. Like, it's okay for him to just be swinging around doing stuff. He's the tracer of tanks. Like, he can rely on health packs and stuff and coming back to you for healing when he needs it. But you should have faded away then once you realize the dilemma. Once you realize there's more enemies than there are of you, it's time to fade. So time to start thinking about what ults the enemy might have. I know that's not something that maybe is always on the top of mind when you're in the middle of, you know, just trying to get the cart to the end, but it is kind of important to think about it. You want to start thinking about when was the last time that you saw an ult, who's been doing the most work on the enemy team, who is likely to be close, that kind of stuff. That's all going to lead to, you know, knowing how to avoid something. Nice res. Yeah, everyone's critical. And I think a lot of that, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think just not traveling as a pack is all it is. I think you're positioned too far away from your main tank. You need to be like right behind him. Like Brigitte. Like right behind him. Nice. Okay. So that was a time when following them would have been the move. So we have quite a lot of things that happen there in a row. We have a shatter followed by, I believe, balls. So it's shatter, and then there's something else happens. Ball goes flying, and then there's a bunch of criticals there. And you have fade. This is the only time I would let you fade aggressively, because you're 97% to ult. You'll get it basically the second you get to your team. But yeah, it might be okay to fade aggressively here if you think you can get to them in time. Yeah, that's no need for that at all. So yeah, I mean, you just saw your main tank die. You know that if you're utilizing this information here, then you'll know the Bastion is still in play because he just killed the main tank. You can see the on up here. I actually don't hate that. I don't hate you just kind of staying by the payload here and just trying to drain her down. That was really good. But popping the ult, no, not in this situation. Like, you got nothing to use it on. You're like, literally nobody's there. Do you see that? There's nobody there. Let's watch that again. Yeah, so should have followed him in there. Ryan dies. You're surrounded by the enemy. You do take Ana out, but then there's just nothing. Zero value except for keeping the Hammond alive. And maybe the Junkrat. So yeah, that's just unfortunate. You guys are still doing okay. Like, it's not like the end of the world or anything, but that particular ult did not gain a whole lot of value. Mostly just because of the timing of it. Just recognizing that was a really good fade escape, by the way. Really well done. And this is an instance where fading backwards is actually the move. There's a couple places actually you could fade technically to high ground if you really wanted to here, but yeah, that was a really good fade escape. Heals are good here. This is better for sure. And again, I don't mind you hanging in the back and holding that down. What even killed you there? Damn. Oh, wow. It was a jumping Baptiste. That's actually, I'm not even mad about that. He headshotted your ass from midair. He deserved that. Alrighty. So, not bad. At the end of the first round there, I think big things so far, just from watching it through, I think you're like a little bit too far away from your team at all times. Just try and be a little closer, a little bit more on them. Moira can survive a lot of shit. Like, as soon as stuff starts to hit the fan, just fade into cover. And remember, that doesn't necessarily always mean fading backwards. Sometimes fading sideways or fading forwards or trying to do a fade jump to something that's like way out of the way. Those are your best ways to escape. So let's take a look at your defensive round. So let's take pause for a second here and flip this around a little bit. It's a pretty good angle. So defending King's Row then, as the defender. Here's your choke. Here and then high ground, there's also two entrances, and then we know there's some from the sides, but you're not going to see those folks for a second. So your main concern on King's Row at the beginning of a match is sightlines of the enemy on you. Who can see you, and can they kill you? So I like personally holding around here because you have the statue to play around, you have hotel to play around, you have point you can dip back to, and there's just like a bunch of different areas that you can go to escape. You can just fade into the corner or whatever. So I like holding it right around here and then being able to just move or adjust on the fly to where the enemy team is. A lot of folks will hold it right up at the choke, and that's fine, but I think that holding it a tiny bit back gives you an advantage. It also means that you can avoid sniper sightlines, which are probably the thing that you're most likely to get fucked over from on this map, is a sniper from the top window or from balcony or that come back here. There's tons of sniper nests on the first point of King's Row. So knowing your angles and knowing how to escape, like you could be fighting here, and if you see a widow, you immediately fade back, and then you're out of her line of sight. She can't see you anymore, right? So those are things to consider on defense, is where am I and who can kill me? Looks like you're going to go for some ult charge at the beginning. Good move. A lot of people throw it into the spawn door. Honestly, I'm not that fussed about spawn door. As long as it goes into the pack of them, then that's all that matters. But you got a nice cheeky 9% off that, so that's good. Good place to hold. Your sight lines are maximized here, and then you're a little bit too far back here. Remember, 15 meters is the length of your heals. 20 meters for your damage. That's worth pointing out. Your heals don't reach as far as your damage hand does. So in some instances, you can think, well, I could kill somebody from here, so surely I can heal from here. Not always the case. There's a 5-meter difference. So I actually like your positioning here. I think you're in a good spot. This is kind of the ebb and flow I was talking about before, of like coming back to the archway and then recontesting. I do like that you went all in on that Winston. I would switch over to heals though now. Okay, and then that Mercy, yeah, she got away with that for free. I'm not sure if we just didn't notice her, but she's like right in front of you. So everyone's pretty healed up here. Like everyone is pretty healed up, except for Hammond's a tiny bit. But I would have switched to try and take that Mercy out. If you see a Mercy going for res, it's always worth trying to stop her. Heals on Rhine. Careful not to follow a damage orb's path. A lot of folks do that. You have a healing thing here, so it didn't do too much work. But when there's an orb coming at you, like, you're kind of following its path here. Do you see? You're walking with it, and it's draining down to nothing. So you let it get you all the way back to this health point here. But like, just when an orb is coming towards you from an enemy Moira, go towards it, not away from it. If it's already going to get you, you're going to get out of its, its power by going forward more so than backwards. Don't hate the ult. Be careful of that. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought was going to happen. Yeah, so yeah. Coalescence sucks in the way that there's so many things that can fucking break it. So like Brigitte can break it, a rock to the face can break it, a hook can break it. There's so many things. So you really have to be cognizant of who is in front of you, and do they have an ability that can end your coalescence early? If so, respect them when coalescing. So if a Brigitte is close, don't coalesce, move away from her. This guy's a little bit harder because he can throw the rock pretty far, but just know that he can throw a rock at you that will stop you from coalescing. So just kind of noticing it's a Sigma, knowing that he has that ability, and then knowing how to handle that. But you get rocked out of it here. Good heals though. Oh dear. That's not a good sign. I would have done the same thing. I'm not mad at you here at all, and I'll tell you why. Even though everyone else is, all over the shop, if you would have tried to have kept people up, you would have failed. Bastion will out-damage you trying to heal people every day of the week. So your best bet there was to try and kill the Bastion, hope that your team got to safety in other ways. So that was good. It was a good kill. Yeah, that's a... I think there's things we can be doing here. Again, if you look forward and you're the only one, there's no one in front of you, then don't be there. Back up, right? Playing this slow, so you fade back. And then let's see what happens. Your team's all behind you, so that's good. But remember, like, if your job as a Moira is to basically enable other people. Like, it's okay to get like kills and stuff because it's really easy to get kills with Moira. Like, if you have 4 gold medals, 5 gold medals, it doesn't mean shit on Moira because Moira tickles everything. When she throws an orb, if that orb touches something that someone else kills, you're getting credit for that kill. So medals don't mean shit in general, but especially as Moira, they mean less than shit. So the only one that really matters is healing. And honestly, if you don't have gold healing, then you shouldn't be playing Moira. Moira is a heal bot for the most part. So yeah, so I wouldn't worry so much about getting my own kills and think about how I can enable the DPS to better get their own kills. So Junkrat Tires. Junkrat Tires and Clutch Kings Row first points. Name a better pairing. So you guys need to regroup here, again, except for Hammond. Junkrat needs to regroup. Your Reinhardt's low. I think he's holding close, but he's crit. Good stuff. Good stuff. Great. And this is nice, by the way. A lot of folks are too afraid to hold this. I point this out because I think this is like a super good idea to hold forward if they have a Bastion. Because if the Bastion gets set up correctly, and it's like sat on the payload and the shield's up and everyone's around there and protecting and all that kind of shit. If the Bastion's set up on the payload correctly, it's so hard to get him off. So if you can prevent him from getting set up to begin with, then that's really good. And this tunnel, generally speaking, is a good place to like just spam, right? Because there's like narrow hallways where you can shoot and get shot. So I like holding forward on here. Also, one thing to get in the habit of with Coalescence, which I haven't seen you do once yet, is throwing an orb, a damage orb, before you coalesce. So because you're only doing 70 HP per second as for damage with Coalescence, it's good to supplement it with an orb. So it should be like throw damage orb and then coalesce. You also kind of cancel the animation a little bit as well. So there's never a time when doing that is not worth it. Even if you throw a healing orb, it's still more value. So you and Brig are the only ones still alive, and Ball. So, but yeah, I mean, you're fine. You can still, like, at this point, as long as you're stopping the cart from progressing, it's good. This is like die on the cart territory. Oh man. Yeah, that's not where you want to be. I get the idea, like it worked before when you tried to take the Bastion out, but this is definitely not going to be the same way. I mean, he's not on the cart, which is a blessing. But since it's only you, Bull, and Brig, I either would have thrown a damage orb in here just to try and unseat him and then faded off to the right. Or I don't know, maybe asked Brig to bash him or something. It's a tough one. You don't want to go in yourself. Not only did you aggressively fade here, but then like a Bastion is just going to melt you in seconds. So it was kind of a wasted death. But you know, you guys held the payload for a pretty decent spot of time up there, so that's good. But now Bastion's going to get set up on there, and it's going to be really hard to get him off. Yeah, so this is it. Like, this is kind of a weird, staggery case of being out of sync with your team. There's a point where you have to kind of throw your hands up and just say, okay, I'm just going to go back and wait. Like, I'm physically going to go back and wait because I'm going to be too tempted to fight if I'm close. Flanking here, not advised as the main healer. Remember, the whole team is relying on you to stay alive. This is prime point right here. There was another one a second ago. I think he dropped. Was there not two a second ago? Oh, he was going forwards. Yeah, so who was it that dropped? Soldier. Soldier and Bull here could have used your healing rather than being on that flank. It's so hard to recontest without really strong heals. I do like that. I do like that. That was pretty clutch. Good positioning. I like that you're keeping it on the Reinhardt. Oh, man. So much chaos. I mean, you're trying here. It's difficult. You guys are just taking a lot of damage. Yeah, I mean, maybe again, like fading somewhere a little closer to your team. You're kind of separating yourself here. Like you've done it a couple times in this match where you just fade, and like when you're here, you got nobody to protect you. If someone starts going after you, there's nothing that anybody can do to save you. From your right, there's a flank angle for the enemy. You have a Sigma in front of you. It's paying you all the attention. And then there's a Moira ulting in the back for the enemy team. Like this is just, you want to maybe be like, instead of fading back here where you're susceptible from damage from here, maybe fade like back into this inside door or something and just kind of keep yourself hidden and pop out to burst heal once in a while or throw an orb or whatever and just try and stay alive. That's the big thing here. You staying alive is so valuable in this contest because if you can knock them off the cart here, it's going to be so hard for them to re-engage because it's such a trek back, especially if you can stagger them. Bastion's ulting. Yeah, don't even try. You can see there's no one else. Like this, the last Soul Survivor Brig dies, and I think you probably already pressed the button, to be honest. There's like 4 frames difference between death. But even seeing one singular critical person here, don't push in. Hold the corner. Because now, because you use Fade aggressively, you can't use it to get back out. And you're just going to feed. So you just fed the enemy ult charge considerably. Just let him take it. It's fine. It's okay to give up space on the cart sometimes. Like, it's an okay thing to do. Again, ignore Monkey. Just fade away from him. Oh, that sucks. I like that you're not pushing too far in, but you do have a couple teammates up there. Good focus priority. You recognized here that you weren't going to be able to kill the Bastion with this Mercy around, and then you switched to the Mercy. That was good. Always change to a Mercy if you see her as your target. Because anything you kill is just going to come back. She should always be the first to die in a team fight if the enemy has a Mercy. It's getting close. Oh my god. What? This is a good fight. Okay, good stuff. Focus him down, focus him down, focus. And this is where you're going to hear people in Overwatch League or whatever, like, screaming one character's name over and over again. Like, monkey, 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 monkey. What that is target prioritization. So they're basically saying, I need everybody that's with me to shoot at this thing. That way, if everybody is shooting the same thing, it dies faster and you're more likely to tilt the odds in your favor. So a lot of this solo queue stuff, it gets so hard because, like, you're not all focusing the same things. So nothing is ever dying. Yeah, if you feel like nothing is ever dying, you need to start focusing a singular person more. Like, start calling out one person that you want to kill and have everyone focus that person. And then just rinse, repeat until the whole team's down. Almost have ult again here. This is good. Scrappy fight. You didn't have an orb there, otherwise I would have suggested throwing one. Good heals on point, good hugging the cart. Nice job. Yeah, so good job. So for Moira, and specifically for you, for Moira, there's a couple points to note there. Number one, you're on some occasions you're a little bit too far away from your team. Your heals aren't reaching them correctly, or they're just like you're a little bit out of whack to the point where you're staggering yourself unintentionally. Because when you are when you're fading like to someplace by yourself instead of with your team, and immediately getting singled out for it. So stop aggressive fading. Only use fade for defense. Aggressive fading should only be used when you're trying to finish a stagger kill. If Baby D.Va is running back to spawn or whatever, you can fade after her and take her out before she reaches it. That's fine. Otherwise, only ever use fade for escape. Do not use it to engage or to get closer to your team or whatever. Just use your feet for that. The coalescence usage was mixed. Some of it was really good, some of it was high value when you were actually like getting you and the enemy team in the same beam. A couple of them zero value because you were using them at odd times. Like I know that, like I said before, coalescence is like a burner ult. You just kind of use it off cooldown, but there definitely is like slightly more optimal times to use it than others. And just kind of try and see when the conditions are right for one of those for you to use it. I think that would definitely help out quite a lot. And just knowing that how much extra like actual healing it does than damage, it's almost a waste to use it for damage when you actually consider that it's doing 140 per second heals. So try and use it to like, if your tank is like just charged off into the back line or whatever, and is swinging away like a wild person, then that's a really good time to use coalescence, because you can reach them with a 30-meter distance, you can keep them up, and you can help actually damage the enemy at the same time. So that's really kind of useful. But knowing there is a difference in length between your heals and your damage hands, that's good as well. The orb usage was fine. You were kind of switching it up here and there. I don't think you were poor at that at all. I think that was really good. The heals were, you did do a decent amount of healing on there, and you definitely were playing the objective. I think a lot of it is either panic ulting that you need to recognize, like when not to ult because you just kind of feel like you have to, but also reading a situation quicker. So if you're in the front, no one in front of you, get back. If you don't have any of your teammates around you to follow up on coalescence, don't use coalescence. Kind of just regular game sensey things, like just taking stock of the moment of where you are and where your team are before making any major decisions. And that's all Moira is decisions. She's just decisions after decisions of, do I damage or do I heal? Almost always the answer is heal. Except for using it to get resources or to build ult. Those are the kind of, or because you got nothing better to do. Your team's fully charged and you may as well hold down the damage button. But yeah, so hopefully that helps a little bit, being able to look at it objectively. I am by no means the world's greatest Moira, but I do know a thing or two about her, and I think you could be really good with her. Just have to try and focus on your positioning a little bit more, and get that gain sense down where you kind of know when something's about to happen. Yeah. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in and listening. And yeah, so far the response to all of these videos has been really positive. So I'm very grateful for that. Thank you all. And if you want to see something specific, or if you want to donate some footage to be looked over, go ahead and hit us up on @HeroRecallOW on Twitter, or HeroRecallPodcast@gmail.com. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.